everybody. Welcome back to another episode of VCTV again. I'm back on VCTV today again for the second time to discuss about food tech and e-commerce investments. The VCTV is from LATOKEN. It's the Venture Capital TV, a platform where we connect investors with the entrepreneurs and startups, influencers, and also help projects to give a media coverage. So yes, let's talk about some of the trends that's happening in the food space, food tech space, because food is a very, very important ingredient of our lives, has always been, but because of the pandemic, it has obviously taken a new sort of role and a shape, and the importance of what to eat has become even much more, has taken probably a limelight now, especially during the pandemic, where some countries like India and Brazil have a third wave, I guess, of the coronavirus pandemic. I think I have a few people joining here as well. So great. So welcome back, Amit, Kingsley, Gary, Dr. Shrikant, and Harsh. Welcome back to another episode to discuss about food tech. Food tech, e-commerce, investments, startups, and trends, and everything around that. Because food itself is huge, right? So let's just discuss everything on this episode of VCTV. My name is, before I start introducing the speakers of the panel today, let me just introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty, and I represent LATOKEN based here in Singapore, and I host VCTV Monday to Friday. Been hosting since 2020. I think just after Gary started off. Right, great. So let's have a quick round of intro of the speakers today. Amit, welcome back. It's your subject.
Thank you, Thani. And indeed, it is mine. I mean, my fund deals everything to do with food security and food tech. That's what we do, and that's the only thing we do. So I think it's a lot of areas that we cover. And beyond that, I mean, e-commerce, especially in the supermarket space, has been not really the subject matter of my fund, but I've been involved with this space with consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, Bain for about 15 years now. I've been writing papers and I've been giving my kind of feedback on how the space is evolving. But my fund is all about food tech. So for those who don't know me, I run a fund called Grover and Company out of Dubai. That is a food impact fund that invests in alternative proteins and alternative dairy. I do have a very extensive background in CPG and management consulting. And before starting my fund, I ran a management consulting practice in 5 countries that I started from a cafe by myself and built it to about 100 people in 4 countries. It's of course taken me 14 years, but yes, I'm a serial entrepreneur with that regard, and now building my impact fund. So that's just a brief.
Wow, starting business from a cafe. Interesting.
Yeah, that's true. And from a country that I didn't belong to, I relocated to New Zealand to do an MBA program, and just the entrepreneurial bug bit me. And like they say, Kiwis love inventing jobs, not doing jobs. So I was no different. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Amit, for that information as well. Gary, good morning.
Good morning. Great to see some friends here, many friends. Good to see you, Sunny, Harsh, Kingsley.
How are you, Gary?
I'm good. I'm real good. So my name's Gary Fowler. Great to be here and see some smiling faces. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns and an IPO. Love artificial intelligence and the kind of impact it's going to have on food tech and also quantum computing. I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of GST Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Santa Clara, California. We go around the world looking for incredible startups that have the possibility to go global, and we curate them. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back, Gary.
Thank you.
Member of VCTV. So next we have Kingsley. Welcome back, Kingsley.
Hello, Sunny. How are you? It's good to be back. It's good to see Gary, Amit, Harsh, Doctor. We are all here again, and a very glorious evening to you all from Tokyo. My name is Kingsley Kobayashi. I'm a serial entrepreneur, investor, both in blockchain and traditional finance and startups. I've been in Asia for about 30 years. I'm actually a Japanese Nigerian, so I know both sides of the coin. So I know what it means to be from a developing country and how it means to be in a developed country. So I hope I will be able to put my inputs from both perspectives in this discussion. Looking forward to all of you.
Oh, that's great to have insights from both sides of the world. Thank you, Kingsley, and welcome back. Dr. Shrikant, over to you now.
I am a regular panelist over here. That's how I'm going to introduce myself from now on.
Right.
And so food tech is something very, very close to my heart because some of the recent deals that we closed was on food per se and hyperlocal. And I'm excited to talk about supermarkets and how the evolving supermarkets where the rule of placement of products is actually changing. So happy to talk about that. I'm a counsel for the Forbes 500.
Interesting, Dr. Shrikant, and thank you and welcome back. Harsh, hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good and great to see some familiar friends, Gary, Kingsley, Shrikant, and having my first session with Amit here. So great to have everyone here. Small intro about myself. My name is Harsh Shetia. I'm a venture partner with our ventures and the founder of Startup Hackers. We're an early stage startup group where we essentially am helping and mentoring early stage startups to kind of go through the initial stages of the journey and helping and guiding them through that. Additionally, I also help startups raise funds up to $5 million, primarily focusing on India, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, speakers of today, Amit, Harsh, Gary, Dr. Shrikant. So today's topic is very, as I said, very close to Dr. Shrikant, and also very close to all of us. Because so with the coronavirus, beyond the immediate concerns related to COVID-19, the food and beverages industry still facing many challenges related to sourcing of ingredients, sustainable production processes, and the need to offer healthy diets to global population that is expected to reach 10 billion by 2050. So on that note, let's start with the trends that we've seen, especially with the shutdowns, with the lockdowns, food delivery, e-commerce, and then we can discuss about food tech and the different aspects related to food tech as well, and the technology behind food tech and supermarkets as well. So let's start with Amit. What are the global trends in this space?
Funny, there are basically 10 broad trends that is driving everything right now in the food tech and especially in the grocery and the supermarket space. I mean, to understand that, firstly, we have to understand the market is like over $100 billion. And if you look at the last 2 years from end of 2019 to early 2021, it's kind of grown by tenfolds. In certain markets like Europe, it's grown by about 60%. In markets like the US, has grown by about 40% in terms of the digital spend on grocery and supermarket. Now, what's really happening in terms of the overall, I mean, there's food tech at one side, which is all about inventing new sorts of food using technology. You've got plant-based meats coming out. You've got cultural cellular agriculture with cell-based meat, precision fermentation, tempeh coming on. Then you've got obviously the plant-based dairy. So that's on the food side of it. On the tech side of it, which is more empowering, distribution to the end consumer, we are seeing a lot of focus at the moment from e-commerce to digital commerce, where fulfillment is the flavor of the month, where people are trying to kind of put a lot of emphasis on driving distribution models that are very efficient, low cost, and very, very impactful. So you've got the kind of the dark stores going on. You've got areas of automation. You've got areas of micro centers or micro fulfillment, if I might use that kind of term. a lot of focus that we are seeing happening on customer experience in that space. So it's all about customization. It's all one size doesn't fit all. So in terms of the selection of produce, products, dietary requirements, there's a lot of standardization now happening digitally than it ever happened. And then, of course, you are seeing a new trend emerge with CPG brands. So the likes of your Nestle's and your Unilevers collaborate with retailers and really service end consumers. So a lot of collaborations happening in terms of the food tech and that space. In terms of payment options, there's a huge amount of payment options kind of springboarding. So you've got the crypto at one end, you've got direct payment methods. In India, you've got, the Paytms of the world. So there's a lot of new innovative payment technologies happening that is helping customers, shop digitally and kind of produce digitally. And of course, it's all about aspects of acquisitions and mergers. You see some of the big mergers that's happened is Plated, which was bought by Albert Sons. You've got kind of DoorDash, which is a big player buying into things like Chowbox, which is nothing but a robotic salad maker in China. So I think acquisitions, and the biggest of this year in 2021 is really Fresh to Home, which is a very large meat and seafood direct-to-consumer model that has just raised over $130 million in Series C, beginning of this year. So I think there's a lot happening on different levels, from food to distribution to delivery, and how the supermarket model and space is completely transforming. So yes, that's the 10 broad trends that's moving the world right now.
Very rightly said, and thanks for sharing, Amit, the global trends. Next, I would like to ask Kingsley about his insights on the global trends in the space.
Hello, Sonny. Hello, everyone. We all know that since the pandemic started, this new trend of how we do business in the world, things are changing. We are adapting. How do we use technology to make sustainability efficient? Thank you. Technology has come here to stay. AI has come here to stay. Data has come here to stay. How do we increase production in an increasing world population? The world population is growing every day, and because of the pandemic and things like that, we're not able to gather as we used to gather again. How do we make sure that the food delivery system is done properly? How do we make sure that from the farm where it is produced is well managed to where it is processed, the processing, and then you go to the distribution, and then you go to making up the food itself, and then going to the consumer. It's a big ecosystem that can be covered in one day. But how do we use technology to make this easier for the next generation? Because the next generation are not like us that used to say, okay, we're going to cook right now at home, we're going to eat, We are now ordering through Uber, through Grab, through different applications. So a lot of applications are here to help us make it easy to deliver food to our customers. But how do we make sure that what we are delivering is exactly what we give to the customer? It's traceability. There has to be a traceability. There has to be a system of packaging that cannot be opened on the way. So how do you create a technology that can make you to see the chef cooking the food in the kitchen, to make sure that the environment is clean for it to be transported? How do you make sure that the bike man did not fall down on the way, draw the food, repackage it, and take it to you? So these are areas that technology is going to help. And we are looking at AI to help those things. We are also looking at agriculture itself. Without agriculture getting better, agtech, there is no way the food tech is going to get better. We have two problems here. For example, in the developed country, we have waste. Countries like Japan, we have waste every day. How do we manage the waste? How do we recycle the waste into the system? Then you have developing countries who does not have the machinery, talking about the technology, to produce or preserve food. So how do we help these regions to preserve their food after they have made it? So why don't we create a system that they both feed on each other? So I think technology and AI and all the applications we have are playing a very big role, and a lot of startups are there right now that are helping to make this easier. And I'm looking to discuss this later and see how we can embrace and marry them together. That is the main aim.
Yeah, sure. I also like I overheard your discussion with Amit. So yeah, I think something is happening there. Thank you so much, Kingsley. Gary, over to you with your insights about the global trends.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's Kingsley's right on target. And traceability is going to be critically important all the way around. So, using big data, understanding how to, just beyond food safety and production to really, things like aroma and flavor and texture, all kind of things. And the other thing that we need to look at is, to go to plant-based protein. Most people don't realize by 2050 we're going to have an increase in the population from 8 to 9 billion, but the amount of food needed is going to have to double. So, and then by the end of the century, we'll have 13 billion people. So we have a lot of people to feed. On the other hand, some of the challenges that we have is that if we look at our carbon footprint, we need to really remove that carbon using nature-based agricultural products. And there's one company called Yansik, which is insect-based protein, and it's real interesting. In fact, Robert Downey Jr. has a investment fund that most people don't know about. I had the pleasure of talking to some of his folks. They actually are one of the investors in these kind of technologies. So we got a problem. There's 26% of the carbon comes from livestock on the planet, and as we increase the population, we're going to have to figure out really interesting ways that are efficient that are not going to add to the carbon challenge we have. So that's one of the other things. The other thing is food is medicine. Look at the pandemic.
Yeah.
We've had all kinds of challenges. We're in the supply chain here. I remember the beginning of the pandemic. It seems like a long time ago, but I mean, we had trucks of food products, vegetables that were given out at a food bank because people could not get food and the restaurants couldn't use it. So there were trucks of free food coming in for everybody, right? There were lines. It was unbelievable. So the supply chain is really important. It's not just about the products, about how long is a product going to have shelf life, how quickly can we get it distributed, etc. Then food is medicine. The one thing about COVID-19 that's really affected every aspect of the industry and really our life, it's, how do we use certain types of food as medicine, certain properties? I mean, every day we're eating food, we don't have a clue. I mean, not many of us really look at the packaging that closely. So how do we go down through, use artificial intelligence as nutrition coaches, foods that feature ingredients that are backed by solid evidence that can really help you improve your own inside, what is a microbiome, and in a very tailored manner. And so as we start to use computer vision and artificial intelligence, food as medicine innovations, there are what they call computational discovery platforms that show us about new nutrients that really can have an impact on our health to help us live longer. Remember, the target right now is 150 today. And
Right.
so these, bioprocessing methods to really enrich these and produce these high value nutrients are going to be critically important. So we got a challenge. We've got to double the amount of food by 2050, but by the end of the century, we'll have 13 billion from 8 billion people. We got a whole lot of people to feed, and we have to figure out how to do that now.
Yes, of course. By 2050, yes, Gary. So
I'm
right.
getting hungry thinking about it.
Right. I mean, time so
I'm
fast.
not eating any insects, though. I got to tell you, when you look at the research, really, there's a lot of protein in insects. But I don't know, something about, when I was a kid, we had chocolate covered grasshoppers one time. As a joke, my friends bought them. I didn't like them at all. So, but those are the kind of things we're going to have to take a look at. Look at the plant-based protein too. Meatless hamburgers, getting rid of the meat and making it tasty too.
Yes, that's the next point I would like to address. But let's take the opening remarks from rest of the two speakers. Dr. Shrikant, over to you. The global trend.
So while I may not be an expert to comment on the global trends as such, what I'm seeing is the largest company in India, or one of the top five companies in India in terms of market cap, actually going on a real shopping trip where they are purchasing all the local outlets and the supermarkets of the world, right? So the hyper localization has been quite active in India, at least. So that being said, I think the innovative supermarkets are now not dabbling with the limited space that they're constrained about in terms of square footage and so on and so forth. Now they are thinking about how to get the product out to the end consumer as such. And what happens in this particular process is the physical place kind of doesn't exist at all. So it is a cloud supermarket that you're seeing at this particular moment, and which is going to prevail. And because nobody is going to go to a supermarket to actually shop anymore, in my opinion at least, and we got used to it.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for those opening remarks, Dr. Shrikant. Next, I have Harsh.
Hey Sonny, so definitely this sector has been seeing a lot of developments, right? So there are multiple elements to it, right? One element would obviously be the food tech side of it, where there's a lot of work being done in coming up with new kind of products, right? So in fact, we are just currently working on a mandate which comes up with really creating sauces and those kind of products truly in the European sense of the term, right? With European Mexican kind of flavor, that kind of flavor, those kind of products. So that is one element of food tech where we have people from India who are kind of interested in trying tastes of across the world, right? What is prevalent across the world. So that's kind of an increasing market which is going on right now, and people want to experiment that. So not just in the sauces category, also in the dairy category. There's another company I've been in touch with. What they do is they essentially build European quality cheeses, right? So France and Switzerland are known for their cheeses which they make. So we have this company who sources their raw materials directly from New Zealand and from Switzerland, and they make those products over here. So that is an increasing trend which is being happening, right? So especially in today's day and age, when the global supply chain has been disrupted, right? The
Yeah.
goods which the cross-border transport used to be very easy back in the day. Right now, it's become difficult. So getting the goods from Europe to India or vice versa from India to abroad has become affected because of that. So that's why we are seeing a lot of this innovation in terms of happening it locally. So that is one major element where we are seeing a lot of improvement happening. Additionally, the next biggest area which I see focus in India is primarily in the logistics space, right? So logistics space, what is happening is we are seeing a lot of development, particularly in the warehousing space, where traditionally Indian warehouses used to be scattered, where you used to have individual warehouses being owned by individual people. Now we have these big funds coming up with big millions of dollars, and they're aggregating it, creating, owning multiple warehouses at the same time, and they are kind of creating a syndicate between them, which creates the communication and the transport extremely easy. So that is a huge shift that we are seeing. Instead of having these local warehouses, we are having these conglomerate of warehouses owned by these big warehouse owners and these big manufacturers, and they're bringing a lot of new technologies like NFC, near field communication, those kind of technologies. They're kind of upgrading them. At the same time, even the transport is much more sophisticated. So those are the kind of developments which we are seeing. Unfortunately, in the supply chain side of it, it is not that focused. The transport sector is still pretty weak and still fragmented. But into the
Right.
warehousing space and that space, which still can be easily controlled and easily managed, because they're all physical areas, right? Over there, we are seeing a lot of improvement happening and a lot of investments happening.
Hmm. Well, supply chain, I think, is a challenge everywhere. Right? Thank you so much, Harsh, for your opening remarks. Okay, let's talk about, we spoke about food tech and e-commerce. So let's just discuss and share what's the role of infrastructure in food tech and e-commerce. We like to share this insights with our audience as well, because one of them actually asked a question. So Amit, over to you. What's the role of infrastructure in
I
food
think
tech?
yeah, sure, Funny. I mean, infrastructure is the backbone and the spine of everything, whether it's food tech or it's delivery to the end consumer. So most of these platforms, whether digital or not, needs logistic partners, need kind of a pipeline to reach the end user. And I think, like before on one session, I'd like to address this from two aspects. One is an emerging market space and one is a developed market space. So in the developed market space, there's a lot of collaborations happening, a lot of, micro models coming out, hyper-local, solutions coming out to get the product to the end consumer. And then you've got the high-tech space within the developed market spaces where you've seen Domino's using drones to deliver pizzas, and there's robots and bots getting used in areas of China and Japan. But the real challenge really lies in the emerging market spaces where the infrastructure is not really at par, whether it's the supply chain or cold storages or unorganized retail. I mean, let's take the example of India. End of the day, you don't have those kind of networks like the West have in supermarket chains and hypermarkets and and so forth and so on. So it barely has any supermarkets. The major concentrations are in tier 1 cities, and that too not that much. When you come to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, it's not that connected. So supply chain is a huge aspect, many bits of supply chain. So for even digital commerce to work, you need a very strong backend and a very strong fulfillment process. Now, the beauty of this, Sonny, is really, like I say, like how India jumped, skipped the computer revolution and jumped to the digital and the mobile revolution, because in the 80s, our country was almost bankrupted. And we couldn't take advantage of the computer revolution, which Europe and America and some of the advanced economies could. But when you look at the mobile, I mean, we've got one of the highest penetration of digital, in the world, in India. And I think you're seeing the same with e-commerce. Because everybody's got a smartphone, it's got the highest penetration of phone. Everybody's connected to applications and marketplaces. So I personally feel in the emerging market space, digital is going to drive it big time in terms of e-commerce in India. But the challenge still poses in terms of back-end infrastructure, supply chain, and fulfillment processes. That unfortunately can't be addressed without a lot of brick and mortar investments in the country. And that poses to be a challenge even now.
Yes, thank you, Amit. Coming over to supply chain, Gary, let's talk about the developed markets. Obviously, we have Amit just shared about the challenges in India from an India perspective. So, what do we see in developed markets?
Well, like I said, the supply chain, we understood during this pandemic, at the beginning, I remember, it seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't. 1 year ago. I remember with pork production in the middle of the United States, the Midwest, they had some challenges because some people had been affected by COVID within a plant. So they had to shut down the pork. You couldn't get meat. I mean, and then it started with lamb and it started with chickens. And so we had a real challenge. We understood that we didn't have insight into the supply chain. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to make it more efficient across the board. So we need to have insight of where, so we can get the right product, the right place at the right time. So it's really from the farm to the table. So it's not, the good news is the pandemics really help us open our eyes to understand where the vulnerabilities are and to be able to course correct. I hope we've learned some very valuable lessons, right? Some humility that you can be in a developed country. And I mean, I saw the lines personally where people were trying to get in to get food. There weren't, in Whole Foods, which is Jeff Bezos' company, I would go in there and there would be a rush of people coming in to buy meat in the morning because there wouldn't be any meat. If you didn't get it within the first hour, you couldn't get anything, vegetables, meat, etc. So the good news is, we course correct. Humanity is very resilient in terms of course corrected. But the other side, we like to forget things that are bad. So we need to go down through and refine the infrastructure. And this is we're all in this together, right? And this global community, all the challenges that we're going to have these challenges together as India rises and Africa rises from 1.2 billion people and China. So all of us, we got to figure out how to be able to get the right food at the right place at the right time and how to make our infrastructure better. So when you have perishable goods, you have X amount of time to be able to get that product to the table, or it's not worth it. And so the last thing you want to do is get tomatoes that are soft, and you haven't gotten them at the right time. Then the other side of it is, bioengineering, to be able to make sure that you got the right kind of product, and you can have them, they'll last as a longer time, and they won't taste like plastic. And I've had those tomatoes, by the way, that really suck because they don't taste that good because they last longer, right? But those are the kind of things. And now when we look at some of the evolutions, these bioengineering, to be able to make things that are a lot better, more nutritious for it, it's a whole world that's coming in front of us. And with the data that we have and the AI, the computer vision, we can now do things that were, 10 years ago were not even possible. Today they're possible.
I think that brought back some memory. Like whenever I was growing up in India, I was used to eating. I've seen tomatoes as big, juicy, like a vegetable. But the moment I went to UK, I couldn't understand what kind of tomatoes were there. Like small and
they were juicy. Yeah, exactly.
They were like, what the heck is this?
Exactly. I remember growing up, I grew up on a farm, and I used to go out, and as soon as they would get ripe, I'd get some pepper, and I'd take them right off the vine and eat them. And I remember then when I went to college, going to the grocery store and eating these plasticky cut tomatoes, and I was thinking, this is going to be good. I got my pepper out and I started putting it on. This is disgusting. And so how do we, the key is, how do we keep the nutritional value up? How do we keep the texture and taste up to make it more interesting? So those are some of the challenges that we have. And the good news is we're working on them.
Absolutely.
Is Harsh sideways, or is it just me?
No, it's not you only.
Drinking.
He's frozen as well. He's frozen.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
That's why he doesn't
International Space Station.
Yeah, he's frozen on the sideway.
Earth to Harsh, come in.
So that movie Sideways, isn't it?
Sorry, what did you say?
Because that movie Sideways. I mean, it's a very well-known.
Look at the expression as well. Look at the expression. Very relaxed.
3, 2, 1, take off.
Sorry. Oh my gosh, he's going to kill us.
Harsh, Earth to Harsh.
Great. Sorry. Kingsley, over to you before.
Look at Harsh, don't smile.
Oh, good. It's a fun night. So let's just keep it going. The question was about infrastructure, right?
Absolutely.
Infrastructure. I mean, as a commercial real estate investor, I see a lot of opportunity there. First of all, supermarkets and processing centers, they need space to put their machines to process the goods. There are opportunities, but at the same time, you also have infrastructure in other ways of how do you put infrastructure or even on ground to help with automation, to help with sorting out products, to help with machinery for developing countries that they don't have. Then in the developed countries, you have a population that is changing from the norm to something different, because people are now more conscious of what they eat. People are now more conscious of the kind of diet they are going to eat, how they look, the kind of food that they're going to take. So this is a different area of investment infrastructure for those who want to feel good, eat nice, eat good. Because to be honest, we don't really have a lot of organic food in the developed countries. We have processed food. We have foods that are put in the fridges, in the warehouses, in cold rooms. Whereas in developing countries, you still have people just bring the food, they sell it to you, you take it, you cook it, it's fresh. But the problem they have is I was in Nigeria when there was a lockdown with my family, and you have to understand that there was interstate lockdown. The country is huge, so you have interstate lockdown. So you cannot get food from the northern part to the southern part, from the southern part to the western part, just as India is big, So, but if you are a small community, it's easier to do this. So most of the food got perished on the way without getting to its destination. Now, when you look at the international part of it, most of the food stuff, most of the grains were stuck in the wharves. There was nobody to clear them because everywhere was locked down. So in this lockdown situation, how do you make sure that there's an automation at the wharf that will clear these products so that the people can have it? How do you get it from point A to point B? So investing in the supply chain, investing in a system is very important. How do we make the system work? So we are still figuring it out during this pandemic because this pandemic took us unaware. But it has also given us a lot of opportunities, a lot of startup opportunities to be able to think out of the box. We are not able to use AI. We are not able to use data. We are not able to use a lot of things to make sure that this thing works. And it's very important that we keep going like this. Very, very important. How do we make sure that all these things are in place and working well for us? So there's a lot of opportunities in that field.
Absolutely, lot of opportunities. Thank you, Kingsley. So Harsh, are you back? Harsh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now. So can I ask you this question next?
Sure. Yes, please.
Because I don't know if you're aware or not, you actually froze upside down. Sideways. Sorry. You froze on sideways. So we're wondering.
I had one of my investor call me. That's why I had to take that call urgently.
Sorry. That's why you froze?
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. Just pulling your leg. So again, the question was the role of infrastructure in food tech and e-commerce.
The role of?
Infrastructure, like we spoke about supply chain challenges in India.
Correct.
So yeah.
Got it. So as I mentioned in my intro as well, right? Infrastructure is essentially the backbone, right? We are seeing a lot of work happening in the warehouses in India because most of the warehouses, as I used to mention, they were being independently operated. They were completely fragmented, right? Because of that, the transport and all used to be extremely difficult. So that's why, we are seeing these conglomerates coming in and, investing in individual states to kind of create their own warehouses and, they are creating multiple business models. Like either they are doing it on leasing model or they're completely doing partial warehousing options as well, right? So now if a company wants to start their own business, they don't need to buy the entire warehouse. You can do a fractional ownership of a warehouse where you can, get a simple like 5 or 10 crates, whatever that you require. So kind of what FBA did in Amazon FBA did in US, right? Similar to those lines, these warehouses are kind of doing like fractional ownership where you can simply keep like 5 to 10 pallets. You can work with them and use that to make a transfer from one area to another. There are a couple companies in Dubai as well which are doing this, and they're doing a phenomenal job because what happens is if you want to reach to the Middle East market, we say that the Middle East is one, but you have Iran, Iraq, Dubai, Saudi. Each of them is a separate country, and it's practically impossible to have a warehouse in every country, right? That's why you have this one company where you can get a couple pallets over there. The same thing is happening in India as well. That concept has been brought over here. At the same time, in India, the focus primarily should be in the transportation side because that is a major weakness, right? What is essentially happening is because the roads and the railways and those infrastructure is extremely underdeveloped as of right now compared to what it could be and what it should be. That is the biggest reason why the cost is extremely high, and it's becoming extremely difficult to manage logistics in the larger run because what is happening is, so there's this company I'm in touch with. They primarily do transfer of raw fruits and raw vegetables and raw grains, etc., directly from farm to the cities, right? So because of this poor infrastructure, there's always a small radius up to which they can do the transfer. They cannot do it beyond that because of the poor infrastructure. So once the infrastructure is properly in place, you can get this these quality of foods and supplied it much more efficiently and much more faster before those produce gets wasted.
Yeah, I think there are challenges in supply chain everywhere. Thank you, Harsh. I think fractional ownership is something I really like. What you mentioned about the warehouse ownership. Thank you so much, Dr. Shrikant. Over to you with your insights about. I mean, obviously, everybody, they've covered most of the points. Would you like to add on something about the infrastructure?
No, I think the spending has gone in terms of, I mean, has gone in terms of creating an infrastructure. I think what we are seeing in the e-commerce market is also a blend of from the EV spending because the last mile delivery has to happen through EVs, and the gas price is going up, and it has touched 100 rupees in India in terms of petrol and 90 in terms of diesel. I think there's a lot of collaborations that are happening inter-industry and intra-industry, right?
Yeah.
The popular saying or the popular jargon about 4 years back was the farm to table. I think I literally got something from the farm delivered by the postal department in India, even during the pandemic. I think the postal department has a lot of. I think from a supply chain perspective, the postal department has a lot of connect,
Mm-hmm.
and it is actively collaborating with private players as well. But what we need to understand is that infrastructure needs money, and money needs returns. And if these warehouses do not are not optimally used in terms of fulfillment, then they're not put to. I mean, they will be abandoned at any point. So that being said, I am I mean, at one point we were talking about drone delivery and so on and so forth, right? I mean, so that goes contra against this particular warehousing principle, where we directly source from the supplier. But those days are a little far away, I believe. But I do see that supermarkets, which is
Yeah.
retail,
Yeah.
B2C, are actually reducing their expenditure in actually having a physical supermarket because it's bloody damn expensive to operate it.
Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, great. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your insights on the infrastructure. Let's just wanted to talk about supermarkets now and the rise of integrated micro farming. So, Amit, let's take your insights on that. Let's just share the rise of integrated micro farming in supermarkets.
Huge. I mean, again, this is a trend, Sonny, which you see more in Europe and America. Like, I mean, we have recently collaborated with Asda, and we are putting about 350 vertical farms in some of the largest supermarkets in Europe. We are integrating about 15 cities in Europe with that kind of technology that would, make consumers access some of the herbs and some of those essential crops and produce in a controlled environment. And vertical farming takes less land, takes less water. It's generally run by artificial intelligence, so big data has a big role to play in it. That's happening in one end. The other end that we're also seeing with supermarkets is they're going into fermentation of the technology. So essentially what we're doing is we are contacting the big corporates and saying we'll buy all your food waste. So the amount of food waste these big corporates have, from PepsiCo to Nestle to you name it. So we are essentially buying food waste, using fermentation and getting protein strains out that could be then used in the supermarket brands of mock meat, in supermarket dairy. So integration, Sony, is happening beyond the vertical farm. You're also going into protein strains and kind of developing products for these very large supermarket chains. You've got Tesco, you've got Asda. These are mega large supermarket chains. So that is what we are facilitating. So if you asked me a year and a half back, it was all about vertical farming, that how we are integrating vertical farming using artificial intelligence and kind of servicing that need. But today it's gone to the next level of fermentation. We are using bioreactors, producing protein strains that are going into supermarket products, which are cleaner, more nutritious, and 100 times more sustainable than anything on the planet right now. So from recycling food waste to vertical farming, we're giving integrated solutions to supermarkets predominantly, like I said, in the UK, Europe, and to a certain extent America. It's yet to go across the world. It's going to be a while before it can hit the emerging market spaces. And, again, there's a problem of infrastructure. So it's going to be a while before it hits emerging market spaces. Yeah.
So do you have a portfolio company that does provide the solutions?
Yeah, I've got about 11 companies that we've invested in, both on the fermentation as well as vertical farm and distribution. So what we are really doing, Sonny, is rather than just taking one position, a type of company, we are basically taking a position in the ecosystem. So it's important for me where the ingredient comes from. So like I said, food waste. So we've got investment in a company that's buying food waste. It's important for me how we are processing the food waste, the technology that we are using to convert food waste into protein. So we've invested in that company. Then it's important for me in terms of who's going to distribute the product. So we are investing on e-commerce companies within that space. So basically, except for the supermarket chains, that is impossible for me, a small fund like me, to invest in. But generally, we've got the value chain pretty sorted out in terms of every component and company that goes into an integrated farming and an integrated protein strain within the supermarket and the hypermarket space.
Yes, supermarkets, hypermarkets. Remember Asda's and Tesco's.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Thank you. And the Walmarts.
Yeah.
Okay, coming over to Gary with the same question. Mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's like one of those cell phone commercials. Anyhow, the one thing that we look at, I just want to talk about these modular micro farms. We're starting to see more of those in the grocery stores here, and also micro farms. We have like 5-acre farms where you can get down and pick fresh fruit and vegetables. Actually, it's really nice. They're really nice to have, and so we're seeing really an uptick in those. I mean, people like to go in and so for herbs that they want to use, for tomatoes, for all kinds of different products, to be able to get them themselves out of these modular micro farms in the retail. So we're seeing that. So fresh, super fresh, I guess it would be. And that's really interesting from my standpoint. It's interesting because the whole key is how can we get it with the highest degree of freshness. At the same time, we got to get it at the right price. Yeah. So what kind of premium are people willing to pay to be able to have fresh food? 20%, 30%. I mean, there's a premium for it because you see the prices are a bit different. So that's really interesting from my standpoint. I mean, the whole thing is, the Germans have a phrase, Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. And one of the things that me talking about is really, we've got to increase the efficiencies of this entire chain, optimize the entire chain from the farm to the table. And how do we do that and keep people interested in the products and services? So as I said, I don't like those plastic tomatoes, but how do we keep that up so that we have these incredible products that are fresh? And how do we determine how long that can have? What's the shelf life? You see, of course, dates on it, but what's the real shelf life for these perishable goods? So interesting ideas, but think about things like computer vision, automatic temperature control, where you've now using artificial intelligence, lights. Of course, these modular micro farms have their own lighting systems built in, et cetera. So, we're the dawn of a new era. The good news, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I like that new term. Plastic tomatoes. I didn't know how to sort of call them. Like I've seen them, like I've eaten, but plastic tomatoes, I don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, but the funny part is, when they sell them, you can generally tell because they're really shiny on the outside. And if you get a regular tomato, I don't know about, but on the farm when we get a tomato, they generally weren't shiny, even if you washed them, and sometimes you did, you just ate them off the farm.
Absolutely, Gary. Absolutely. And when you peel them off, it like comes up like a sheet of plastic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Kingsley, do we see integrated microfarming in Japan?
Yes, I mean, Japan is a very developed country. It's very, very developed, and they have integrated farming. They have a system that's out of them automatically. They have robots that help out with it. They have AI. I don't see a problem with Japan meeting those resources. They have those resources, they have those technology at hand. And the only problem I have is when will this get evenly distributed around the world?
Yeah.
How do you explain to my grandmother that an egg can expire? The egg never expires to my grandma, right? So now you have eggs in developed country that say, okay, expiry date of this egg is so and so date. And try explaining to somebody from a developing country, the egg never expires because it's organic. It comes directly from there. It's a walking around hen and really egg, it lasts longer. Like Gary said, you have the plastic tomatoes. It's not just tomatoes. The apple. Everything is different. The lime, everything is different because they contain preservants to make them stay longer in the stores. Whereas in the developing countries, you go to the farm, you pick them up, you bring them home, you cook them, you eat. Even if there's going to be transportation, you are transporting from one small city to the bigger city. They buy it right away. They don't even have a storage. Now, all we are talking about is vegetables and things like that. What if we go to fishery, for example? We go to meat processing. This is another ball game entirely. In the advanced world, fishery and meatery is well taken care of. Well taken care of. I remember when I took my daughter home one time and they just buying meat, and then this guy came around, and then they just killed the fly and caught the meat. And my daughter is like, "I'm not eating meat anymore. Let's go." But that is how it happens in developing countries.
Yeah.
Because you have the flies around, it's all nature, it's all what you do. There is no processing plant. You kill it, you butcher it, you eat it. Whereas in the developed countries, you don't even see where they are butchering the animals. The children don't even know how a chicken is killed or how a cow is killed. They don't see it. They're not supposed to. But when you go to different regions of really poor areas, you see this thing happening every day. So when are we going to get a solution that serves everybody? Like Gary said, we're going to have 13 billion at the end of the century. So if we are going to be feeding 13 billion people, how many of these billion are going to be left behind unfed? How many are going to be malnutrition? How many are going to be well fed or even go to bed hungry without food? So we have a big problem in our hand that we have to integrate. We have to marry. It is time to think globally, not regionally. How do we create a system that works for every region? Even if it's by providing infrastructure like power. Some people don't even have power for cooling the meat. The cold rooms. The cold rooms are actually warm. They are not cold because there's no power. It's as simple as that. How do you give them solar system? How do you give them clean energy to make it happen? So I think we still have a lot of way to go, but the awareness is there. Like Gary said, we have the awareness. We just have to educate people more, and we have to provide them with the materials that we are not using here. We cannot all grow at the same time. Once you phase out this material, you give it to the other generation, let them use it first in other regions, and then they grow as we grow, step by step. I think we'll get there.
How many of us here have seen the chicken running around and just gone into our plates?
Many have. I certainly have, coming from India.
Yeah, we have. Sorry. We have, right?
No. During Christmas, we had 2 chicken, and then on the Christmas day, there was no chicken anymore. My son is like, "Where are the chickens?" They're in the plate, right? It's as simple as that.
We in India have been maimed enough, Amit. There is enough names about chicken running around, chicken crossing the road over here.
Yeah, or the chicken with the head cut off. You know, and if you want to get people to eat plant-based food, we'll let them watch or something get butchered sometime on the farm. And
it's very important.
You're going to have vegetarians all over the place.
The other day, Gary, I could hear the rooster behind you. Was it like running around freely? Or
yeah, I mean, the thing is, in Key West, we have chickens everywhere. because they had fighting birds, and then the people, they're almost like the bird of Key West. So there's chickens everywhere running around.
Are they endangered species or they're
No,
free?
they're just the people are a little bohemian down there, and they just like the chickens running around. And I hate it because they're crowing, like 3 o'clock in the morning. The roosters are crowing, and it's funny because the house is close to the water, and you got crazy chickens running around all the time. It's unbelievable. They're like feral chickens.
But on a serious note, there is a study which was published by the Center for Economic Policy, which linked the egg prices with inflation, and there is absolutely R1 correlation between the egg prices and inflation. Would you believe that? In India?
Wow, really?
Yeah. An egg varies between 3 rupees to 6 rupees, which is what, about 10 cents to, 5 cents, about 10 cents, one egg.
Yeah.
There is a real inflation indicator around that. That and one more thing which I can't say in a very dignified way.
Okay. you can type in, maybe we all can see it. There you go. Okay, got it. Over to you.
And Sonny, don't add chicken to the endangered species. We love chicken, so leave it the way it is. They're not endangered. There's enough chicken in the world.
Okay, all right. They're not endangered species. Okay, sorry. How would you like to share?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, so anyways, I would not kind of get into that.
You are a vegetarian?
Yep, I'm a vegetarian, man.
I am a second-degree vegetarian. I eat the things, I eat the grass.
By the way, I'm vegan. That's the next level to a vegetarian. I'm vegan. So
You're vegan, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
I am a second-degree vegetarian, so.
Chicken are direct descendants of the dinosaurs, if you know that.
Sorry, come again.
They share the same genealogy as dinosaurs.
Chickens. Didn't know that.
Yeah. Which means if you eat them, you live longer.
Okay, we should all eat chicken.
So does that mean you're eating dinosaurs when you're eating chickens?
No, same. What genes? Not necessarily.
Same genes.
Yes, I mean the same. I don't know, this whatever we have, the DNA and stuff. So basically, okay. Oh, right. Harsh, you are a vegetarian, vegan, but any ideas about?
So go ahead, Sonny.
I don't have much idea.
Try to figure.
I don't have much idea. I don't have much idea about chickens. But coming back to the original farming discussion, there's obviously.
I got like a little distracted.
So in India, there have been occasional startups here and there who are doing hydroponic farming, rooftop farming, but it's never truly gotten that mass scale. I know 5 startups at least just in Mumbai itself who are working on rooftop farming, hydroponic farming. They've done it like around 50 rooftops and got all that stuff, but it's not got that mass adoption, and it's not getting that wide acceptance which is needed to truly make it commercially viable in the long run, right? I'm not really sure whether that's government policy that's stopping that, or is it investor interest, but there definitely needs to be some more interest towards that, because I see that to be a far more efficient than the way the conventional things are going, right? Imagine that the food is being grown 500-600 kilometers away. It needs to be transported all the way to the cities for someone to consume. But if you can consume it nearby, imagine the savings that can be done if it is just consumed manufactured locally through hydroponic farming.
Yeah.
What about the problem that come with the pollution of the rooftop in a densely populated area?
Yeah, it will reduce the pollution as well to a huge extent, because what's happening is even the conventional farming techniques, there is extensive soil pollution because of extensive misuse of chemicals and everything, right? What's happening is after a couple decades, the soil is becoming completely infertile because of excessive use of chemicals. So this hydroponic farming and rooftop farming will kind of help solve that problem as well. And the fact is, India being a kind of like a subterranean kind of a geography, where you have extensive sunlight as well, right? Even growing them is not a problem because you can grow them 24/7, 365 days a year.
Thanks for the
Great
information.
Great question, and thanks for answering, Harsh. I think we come to the end of the show right now. I think we had not only a very informative session, like I got to know a lot of things about chickens per se.
I'm sending a rooster to Harsh as a present.
Okay, everybody, ready?
Please join Gary. Yeah. I mean, very interesting and very funny session today. But most importantly, very informative as well. And thank you for sharing all those little general knowledge that I wasn't aware of, like inflation, how to measure inflation in India using chicken, eggs, the prices, cheese, and plastic tomatoes as well. Yes, and micro farming in supermarkets, fermentation as well. That's something new totally for me, Amit. Thanks for sharing that as well. So great. I hope everybody who are watching VCTV also had a great time with us. Having said that, I come to the end of the session. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Amit, Kingsley, Dr. Shrikant, Gary, and Harsh. I hope to see you back on another episode of VCTV. Till then, take care of yourself. Keep smiling and stay healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.